Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Do it live.
Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Welcome to Wired Axcess Podcast, where I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. We appreciate everybody that likes, share, follow, subscribes, all the wonderful stuff to continue to get these athletes' stories out. So maybe your son, your daughter, or someone you know could just get a little glimpse of what it takes sometimes to overcome those difficult parts of their life that sometimes they don't share with us. They don't pass it on. But also, we really appreciate those who continue to vote for the Wired Axcess plug-and-play coverage. We just got done with state football. We're ready to go into basketball. We're going to do Hoops Night with Wired Axcess one night a week where we cover the boys and the girls at one of the schools that, once again, you guys vote for. Today, I have something that's a little closer to my heart. And these, I got to have TJ on the show before. So if you recognize TJ McDougal, former coach for Papillion South and for, baseball and just so much a part of our life. And then we have Cody Cizek, who is a Papillion La-Vista South Titan, but also now committed to Northwestern for the next level for baseball. But Cody, your story is so important to me because there's a part of life that people judge in different ways. Me and TJ have had a talk offline of how important everybody's development in this situation is different. I always say I wish Kendall would have just maybe been able to hold back like yourself in 8th grade for a decision more for your physical, but also just the way that you develop when you turn 18. Kendall didn't turn 18 till October 30th. He's been graduated for 5 months. And this dude's now 6 foot. In high school, he was 5'10" if he was lucky. And it's just the mass growth, the strength growth, but the mental, I think, is really important, especially when you're looking to go play at the next level. So first of all, thank you for joining the show. And remember to reset that mic for me. But Cody, you made a big decision with your family back to take 8th grade over, not because of school. You're a smart kid. I think that's the best part, is it eliminates one of the elements, TJ, when you look at just recruiting, right? There's so many important things: grades, attitude, appearance. And when I mean appearance, it's your appearance to social media, it's your appearance to teachers, it's your appearance to coaches and to the community. Cody is a part of so many things outside of school, whether it's the Papillion, like
Mayor's Council, right?
Council, yeah, like all that stuff that just gets these experiences that sometimes parents don't know about them. They don't push their kids to think of outside the box of normal school stuff because you're so engulfed in sports, especially with select sports, that you miss those opportunities. So that's what this show's more about, is just kind of talking through that. 8th grade, do you remember like the process that you and your parents went through, just discussing the reclassify to go back? And the reason that can happen is your age. He's a young senior. Now are you 18?
I am. Yeah.
You just turned 18 over the summer. That's right. Which matters. Mm-hmm. What do you remember of 8th grade growing up and making this hard decision, especially when you got all these friends? You got friends, but unfortunately, when it comes to the next level of sports, friends are friends. They're not the ones that are going to be there to make you work harder all the time. They're not the ones that are going to do the sacrifices. What do you remember of that decision?
Yeah, I was just surrounded by a lot of great people at that time. I had a coach who kind of originally made me kind of think of that and kind of first brought it to our attention. And at first we weren't really thinking into it a whole lot, but then, me and my mom and my dad, it kind of came up a little bit more and we started talking about it a little bit more here and there. And then eventually it was kind of somewhere it's just like, they kind of supported me and like, we'll do whatever you want to do. Just make that decision. And then, so we kind of made that decision, but it was a tough decision. I mean, but your friends are going to stick with you when you're close to them. It kind of opened some new relationships to me, got me a few close coaches, kind of opened up some new opportunities for me, led me to kind of focus in on my training and kind of what I wanted to get out of baseball and out of my sport and really like hone in on my craft. So I have no regrets. I loved it.
Well, I like that you brought up coaches. So Coach T.J., obviously you have a connection with Cody, but also his dad was a coach. And I think as fathers, you coached your son for the longest. It's not easy. Everybody judges it. everybody has their own say, but they don't understand, like, these are things that you're giving back to other kids, sometimes even more than your kid.
Yeah, I could say Brent was one of those. So his dad, I think, started coaching him in select baseball probably 9-10 when your dad first started.
Yeah.
So he coached him a long time. We got Cody at 14s for Storm Chasers majors level baseball team. He joined a group of hardworking kids where you see like Bryson Ball was on our team. He's committed to play basketball at D1 level. John Gansky's a kid living in Hawaii who has opportunities to play college baseball. You know, like the list of guys kind of goes on that we coach, that you see them have college opportunities. And when Cody came in, one of the first things that you saw was he had the maturity, he had the character, he had the work ethic. So it wasn't like he was a square peg in a round hole type situation. He fit right in with everybody. The guys who would go and hit at Wired Training Center at 5:30 in the morning at the time, 6:30 in the morning, and they would train. And Cody's one of those guys who took it very serious. His arm care, everything was just very diligent about those things. But also just the formation outside. We mentioned like Mary Youth Council. He's an honor roll kid. I mean, I've known Cody since he was little. My wife was his school counselor, strangely enough. So like we've known him and who he was for a long time. So him being a part of a team was something where I felt really confident that when his family decided to make the choice together, his dad called me. I may have been one of the first people that they called because they were looking, okay, if he stays back, does he have an opportunity to play? And it's like, he can try out, we can do that. We would love to have him. We think he would fit in great with what we have. He's a great ball player. And just understanding like the decision making. And remember his dad asked him, like, look, every family is going to do what they feel is most important for their kid and put their kid in the best position, because we all mature at different rates. And although his mental side was really mature, he was a big dude, but it doesn't always move the right way all the time yet. And I think everyone looks at those things, they're like, well, Cody's a 4.0 student. Well, Cody's already 6 foot tall or whatever he was, like he doesn't need to do this. And sometimes we focus on that. And I think everybody's decision on that is going to be different. And one thing I looked at, and I remember telling his dad, is like, age matters. I mean, if anybody reads the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, it really delves into this, where it looked at dates of Major League Baseball players in, like especially in the 1980s and 1970s. And July 31st used to be the cutoff for like Little League Baseball.
Okay.
So there was a higher percentage of kids who were born right after that July 31st deadline than later on. And the reason is because these kids get identified early, right? You go out there, and if you are 11 months, 10 months, 9 months, 8 months older than kids you're competing against at 8 years old, right? Let's say 10. I'm easy in math, right?
Well, but we did it. You did it with Kendall. You saw his progression for you guys at that 11 months older.
And you look at it, and like when you're 10 years old, 11 months, when you break it down, that's a head start, right?
Yes.
And it's the coordination a lot of times. So kids grow at different rates, but it's a lot of times you see kids and you're like, oh man, that kid looks so athletic and he moves so well. And it's like, yeah, he's 9 months older than that kid. And when you're 10 years old and a month is 1/120th of your life, 9-10 months of those, that matters.
Yes.
And so they point people out early. They see that people go there. They love the early bloomer. They love that, right? There's websites dedicated to showing off like, okay, I picked this guy first. There's a Twitter page in Nebraska. This guy does a great job covering youth football and wrestling. Nebraska Next, awesome guy, does a great job. But like a lot of it is like, man, I saw this kid in 7th grade. He's a dog, right?
Yeah.
And as coaches, we're picking 8-year-old baseball kids for select baseball. 7. What I noticed on our team, which played at a pretty high level, is we had 3 kids born after January 1st on our baseball team. So 3 kids. Brett Holscher, who is committed to Iowa Western to play baseball.
Yeah. Been on this show.
Been on the show with you. My son was born an April birthday.
When that commitment happens, hopefully he'll be on the show.
And we had one other kid. That was it. The rest of them, and maybe one kid was born in January or something like that, but the majority of them were earlier in that cycle. And as we got older, that disparity changes a little bit. So, like when you look at someone like Cody, who was playing at a high level, who knew what he wanted, whose family was supportive of him, when you go there, it's like, okay, what happens in 6 months? What happens in 12 months? How does that catch up? How does that relay? And how does that work through 4 years? Especially when he is going, I don't think he's really a reclassify guy in my brain, because he's now playing at the age level and the grade level that he was meant to be. And when his parents call me, I'm like, that makes sense to me. I mean, that's where he should be right now. He's now playing where he should be. Like your son played for us at the age level he should have been. He just was a grade level older. Nick Riggs played for us at 8s and 10s, who was playing to UNO. He's one of the lucky ones who was super talented and just it worked out, and he played kind of above, or his grade level was above. And when he went to high school, he had a lot of confidence and was really good. Another guy who was playing above, but very rarely does that happen.
No.
Those are guys that's pretty rare. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think, tell me this, how important do you think this decision during COVID year changes the whole aspect? Because one thing I could say for my own son, when I offered him to he's like, oh, man, I really don't want to redo 8th grade. But when you kind of told me off air of how important was that during COVID for you to kind of go through that experience where you're going through it, but you're doing a lot of it from home. So you're not really going through the same school cycle that you would have had it been non-COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely different. COVID definitely changed things, but I mean, I think if there was a year to do it, that was definitely a pretty good year, pretty secluded. A lot of people were home from schools and stuff. So I was still able to practice a lot, getting a lot of work with teammates and whatnot. But online school kind of allowed me the flexibility in my schedule to go up to Wired for hours and service sports performance. I was able to get in there and get in lifts. And that's kind of what changed my kind of kid body and to start developing a little bit. And that had a big part to doing it. So it kind of just helped with that maturity, that aspect, just kind of being able to have that extra time to do those things and not having. And then that kind of also helped with the friendships part of it, because it's like, if we're going to be doing online school anyway, seeing my friends through Zoom isn't the same as being in a classroom and having all those connections either. So it was just a good opportunity.
Well, and I mean, speak on like even your son going through COVID is different than him going through COVID, because he obviously is in the public school. So then they're going through it, but I don't think the flexibility was as great as it was.
No, I think it was a balance. And I think I look back at that time for a lot of kids, and I just think like mentally getting through that, for my son and I know for Cody, because I saw it, I think it was an outlet to go and be a kid in those environments and work. And I know they would be over. I mean, I don't know how many hours they were at Wired. I mean, I don't think you could count all the hours, honestly, because it was kind of like a refuge for them, where they'd hit in the cage, they would do the right things, but then they're playing wiffle ball for hours. They're doing stuff like that too, where they're being competitive and getting to be kids. And I think the thing about COVID was when you kind of came out of that, we got a weird 8th grade 14U season. It didn't really start up till June. It was short. It was intense. It was kind of this weird thing. I guess it was 13U was the weirdest, but 14U too. You came out of it and you had, it started regular. You had this stuff, but there was still like these different things with travel and stuff like that.
Rules, regulations that you're trying to adjust to.
Yeah. And so it was just, I think for everybody, it was just kind of a sense of relief to be able to go out and play ball and do something. And a lot of those kids chose to spend the time in the cage and their body, 14 years old, though, the body's changed so quick. The swing changes because the body grows or strength. And I think mentally it's tough. I mean, like 14, I always tell everybody that's one of the trippiest years coaching kids ever, because certain kids like grew real quick and they were studs and they struggled. And other kids didn't grow and they looked good, but they weren't strong enough. It was kind of, because you're on the big kid field. It was really weird. Then you mix COVID in there and it made it a strange year altogether.
Well, I mean, I've had multiple, current MLB players and other athletes at college level that talked about how important for them. It was kind of like a reset during COVID. It gave them the time that they normally didn't have, like you said, with being a kid and being able to live in those moments. And it's either you took advantage of it or you didn't. There was, those choices of, I don't know, it's COVID. And parents made a big decision of that too. Because as parents, your parents could easily said, nope, you're staying home. You got your mask on. You got all this stuff. Like all those things that were going through people's minds that is kind of somewhat uncontrollable, as far as there's different places, different rules, different regulations. And once again, I appreciate Wired Train, because without them, I wouldn't be back where I'm at, because he gave me the opportunity. He's like, dude, I want to give you, and Brian Southworth, thank you again. But also providing that opportunity for the kids. You said the best part, they have a key fob. It's on you. Don't get me wrong. You pay a monthly fee. The amount that you get out of it is just like a Planet Fitness. Yes, Planet Fitness is a low $10, but they're going to keep taking your money whether you go or don't go.
Yeah.
So you guys took advantage of that. Going on to high school, these decisions aren't easy when you're looking at opportunities, because I think with sports, sometimes it matters your connection with coaches. It matters can I get the opportunity that I'm really looking for? Because if you didn't go to Papillion Middle School, doesn't mean that you're not going to be looked at, by the Papio South coaches or by the Monarch coaches. But sometimes those are kind of shaded a little bit because, he's not. You ended up choosing first Creighton Prep. How did you and your family decide on going to Creighton over a local school?
So we were first introduced to that by a friend, and then it kind of just grew from there. I went to a few camps, really like the coaches and the facilities and everything. And it was just a combination of things. We've always heard great things, and the academics were really good. And it just provided me, especially coming out of COVID, they had a lot of events and a lot of ways to get around people there. And it was just a bunch of guys. And I kind of miss that, kind of just being around the guys kind of like that. If it wasn't just for baseball or for training, I was homeschool. I was at home and whatnot. So it was just nice being around people. And I kind of just formed some connections, learned to just really like the school and the people there and the coaches. So originally that's where I really thought I wanted to go. And that's kind of why I chose it.
And you go through the high school experience and things work the way they work. And then you get to Papio South, you get home and you start looking for that future. What all do you remember of that decision of going from Creighton Prep and going, hey, this is where I want to go. I got to make this change, because these changes impact your future. It impacts to where the opportunities to be seen. I hate to say it. I tell people all the time, you're going to be found. And we've had coaches on here, we've had recruiters on here, and they tell you, if you have the talent, you're going to be found, but you got to be able to play. You got to have the opportunity to show it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things is it's not just they're right, you're going to be found, but you also have to search, right? I mean, I tell kids this all the time when they're asking me about recruitment and they're coming to me and even in my son's recruitment with football, and it's kind of like prayer a little bit, right? Like if you just pray, nothing's going to happen. You also have to have action behind that, right? You have to do. And I think that's the important part in all this is Cody did, right? Like Cody took care of the academics. I mean, he's if you're not a 4.0, you're close, right? Yeah. Right. And he's a good ACT kid. And he's taking care of all those things. I mean, I'll give a little prep Jesuit word here. Cura personalis, care for the whole person. Cody's someone who does that, right? He takes care of his little sister.
Yes.
He tries to take care of his other little sister as best as he can. He takes care of his brother, takes care of his mom. His
brother's party rock, man.
Dude, hey, I'll tell you guys, that's an early one to get on, both football and baseball guys, because that dude's an animal. But
basketball.
But I'm telling you, that whole picture, you've got to do it. You've got to go out and you've got to grasp these things, because these these coaches are inundated with thousands of kids who want the opportunity to play. And I don't care what level you play. If you play college sports, you're a dog, right? Like you're a stud. Like, I don't care D1. Yeah, you're a stud. And everyone's like, I want to go D1, you know, and they do that all the time. But, you know, D2, NAIA, D3, JUCO, it doesn't matter. Like, you're in the top like 10% of all athletes in the United States if you're competing at those levels. So you have to understand that everyone wants to be in that top 10%. What are you going to do that separates that? Cody's always been a kid who's done those things, and they've made decisions as a family. They've done those things that have given him some opportunities to do that too. Brent and Bobby are salty the earth, awesome people who are gonna do that. But also they've given those opportunities, but Cody takes them and he runs with them, and it's not been perfect, right? He will tell you it's not been a yellow brick road. It's not been rosy.
It has not.
It's been tough. You know, I know it hasn't been easy with friends and non-friends. I know when you make decisions to stay back a year, to develop and do that, when you make a decision to transfer from a place that you love, when you take those risks, all those things come with criticisms, and it's an online community now, and
everybody's got a keyboard.
Hey, man, and like, as much as we'd like to pick these kids up and shelter them and love them, the world likes to talk. Yes. And, you know, I think the best thing that Cody does is he keeps his head down. He keeps his earmuffs on. He keeps the blinders on. He works and he does the right thing. And no matter what happens, like, he's going to continue to grow and do the right things because that's who he is as a human. So to me, like, this whole recruitment thing's awesome. What he's done, all these challenges are awesome. But the most important thing is he's a good dude.
He stuck to who he was.
He is.
He never went out of pocket.
No,
never went out of pocket. And Cody, when you know, if we could ask you, like, being on the kids side, going from where your dad is your coach to where you get to have a different relationship with him through the process. What was that like for you? And obviously you got to do it before you got to high school, right? Some don't get to experience it until they get to high school, and then they're like, a deer in a headlight, right? You're like, oh my God, what are these coaches? But you also did it because your dad, you know, let you go play for other teams too, which like, that's a father caring about that situation. I never wanted to coach my kids, hence why I coached DBs on defense, and hence why all I was a parent on baseball or basketball. Basketball, I just kind of got sucked in for the simple of we needed coaches, and that's the sad part, is when I respect the game so much that I was like, I'll keep the kids where they need to go, but I don't know enough about basketball, but I'll be the guy that every time keeps them together. Know my role, right?
Yep. When
you look at that with your dad and going through that change in that, how important was that for your development, do you think?
Yeah, my dad was great. He was kind of like you. He didn't really want to get into the whole coaching thing, kind of got sucked into it a little bit, but he was always pretty good about it. He never wanted me, he cared about me, and he never wanted me to have that reputation of just playing because I'm the coach's kid. And it's definitely hard coaching your own kids. And, you know, you see everyone making jokes about it and everything. It's definitely not easy, but he did a great job. We had 2 great assistant coaches when I was playing youth ball. So my dad kind of just stayed out of it. He was like, he let Bernie and Bruce do it, and they kind of supported me and were kind of right around me. He put me out with Coach T.J. here. And, you know, like, your coach is kind of always in a way, like, kind of like that father figure. He's kind of always there for you, always caring about you. TJ was the exact same way. It sure is like a little bit of a different perspective, but I never felt unprepared, and he always kind of drew me in the right direction.
What do you think was the biggest change in your relationship when that happened?
I mean, it was just like not having him in the dugout, but it was just kind of nice being like after the game, being able to like go up and talk to him about, like, you know, baseball. Cause once you get in the car and everything, it's just like when he's coaching, it's not like you can't go up to your dad and like, you can be like, this is going bad. Like, what advice you got? I can't go over to the third base line and be talking to him like that. So it's just kind of nice having that support system, like in the stands. And it just, I mean, it was a little bit different, but I liked it either way. It was just a little bit of a change.
TJ, when you think of, like, from the father side, of course you went through with Ty. What was like, you think, your biggest change in relationship for you guys? I mean, it was kind of a little hard because you got pulled into football that you weren't expecting to.
Yeah.
So that's like a life changing for you, where you go to a sport that you also highly love, you played, but you also know the backlash of what football can happen, of injuries, all that stuff. So you're like, as a father, you're like, man, I want him to have it all, but I also have.
Yeah, I think, looking back with baseball, it's pretty easy. Scott Povich being the head baseball coach at a young age. Christian Sterling was a great pitching coach. He played at Creighton. His son, Cody Cizek, however, depending on how you know him, is a pitcher for the Monarchs, for Papillion, who's all district type pitcher. There I really got to take like a backseat on like, I mean, I don't think I ever suggested where Ty should play or where he hits in the lineup ever.
Weird.
Ever. Like, because for me, first of all, the manager, the lead guy gets that. And that was Scott. And like, Ty's one of those kids where there were years where he developed and he was a stud, and there were years where he grew and he wasn't a stud, and it kind of went back and forth with that. With football, yeah, getting pulled into that. I didn't coach the first year he played. I had him play middle school 1 year as well while he was playing, for the junior Titan program, because I wanted him to have exposure to other people. And for me, I think that the toughest part, honestly, like, Ty's a highly competitive kid. And even though when I want to turn it off, he's not always turned off. So, he gets
Which
in
normally,
there.
as a father-son duo, that's the opposite, right? Normally it's the father, and I could say it from my personal experience. You constantly want to talk about it. You want to, instead of just letting it out.
After games, man, if it wasn't a good game, he's boiling still. Like, even this year, and I'm not, obviously not coaching him this year. And, they lose a tough game to Elkhorn South. And, it was one where I think he highly expected, I know not the Metro didn't expect it, but I think he expected, hey man, we're going to win this game. He felt pretty confident that they could do that. It was a tough game in the fourth quarter. We end up losing. And, he was so highly critical of himself, it's like, hey man, dude, like you did your job. You did this. And it was me kind of coming down. And he's been like that since he was little. We get in the car and I tried to abide by all the rules. Like, don't bring up baseball. Don't do that. And I'd be like, hey man, hey buddy, he'd be like 9. Hey buddy, you want to go grab Dairy Queen? And he's like, no, I had an error. I played horrible. That's just who that kid was and is. And so like, I'm always just trying to like push that down a little bit. So when I got to be just dad, it was a little bit easier to try, but he's still, in baseball.
Well, you remember when they got those rings and these kids go,
yeah,
what did we get this for? We didn't do nothing.
Yeah. Ty famously probably doesn't have a second place medal in his room because he threw anything not first place away, which isn't the way you should be, by the way. Like 100% should not be that way. I'm not advocating that at all, but that's just who he is. And for me, it's like accepting that, because I'm trying to tell him to like chill, to calm, to do this. And he's just like, nah, like, and then that's the way it is. And Cody's laughing because Cody knows Ty pretty well and knows the same way. And Cody, on some level, to be honest, is kind of the same way too.
Yep.
We had a team that ran a little hot growing up. So I think like as a dad, just trying to build that relationship that I'm not here to coach you. I'm not here to be a critique all the time. But then again, I'm also being like, hey, dude, let's check out your huddle. So like, we
know how to watch film.
It works both ways, it's trying to do that. And obviously having moms in there, I think Bobby probably has saved you quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
In times where dad's done some of that stuff. And I know Megan's been a godsend to Ty at times too. So
when you look at the past 4 years, it goes quick, your high school career. What do you remember as far as when your recruiting process started, and what were you aware of, and what was something, if you look back and you could go, I wish I knew this, that you would want to pass on to even your siblings? I mean, you got your brother coming up that he should know.
My recruiting probably started around junior winter. It was the first time I ever had a coach reach out to me, but just kind of the way my recruiting was going, and just kind of I knew what I wanted to do from the beginning. I wanted the small school feel. I wanted to be able to play baseball, and then I want to be able to get a degree in biology and be pre-med. So I knew that kind of limits some things. So we had to do some research, figure out like what would best work for me. And so that kind of limited down the schools I really wanted to go to. I never was big on like the D1. Like that wasn't a huge goal for me. And luckily, like, just like with my skill set and everything, that wasn't very realistic. And I kind of I knew that. And I was surrounded by people who were just kind of around me supporting me. So when I knew where I wanted to go, it was just like, now, like, let's get out in front of people and let's do that. So in the summer, I played for the Nebraska Prospects, and that kind of just skyrocketed. They put me in front of a whole lot of people in the summer and the fall, and all I had to do was play my game, and that kind of did it for me. So in the fall, I had lots of visits, was able to have a lot of opportunities to play at the next level, and I ended up choosing Northwestern, and they're great, but I would say like my best advice, something I wish I would have known, is just like, you got to be patient. I know it's so hard. I know it's hard for me. Like in the summer, you know, you get done hitting 500 on a weekend and not one coach texts you and you're like, well, what just happened? Like this sucks. Like I thought I did it all.
Same message Connor Capisci's told me when I interviewed him, and he was waiting on a phone call from the White Sox to possibly draft him. Was that message there? He was in front of 500 coaches at a biggest stage. Not one coach said anything. And now look at him. So when you say that you're not D1, I don't know where you're going to fall as the career keeps going, but just know like it's going to continue to roll because you have the right steps. TJ, going through the process of recruiting, and you're seeing it even with your own son. It's not easy. I mean, I just was blessed enough to be there when Aiden Whitted said that he was committing, and I followed him through the prep red zone and being able to just see. And it's hard because I have conversations with fathers, and sometimes the fathers have weird conversations with me about it. And I'm like, let these kids blossom, let them grow. And I guarantee you'll see what you want on the other side. And his is a story of getting to commit to Kearney, D2, being there, being in the atmosphere, and just really feeling at home. You talked about it, you know, how you knew what you wanted. You knew where you wanted to go.
And I think that's important because recruiting's changing like by the minute. I mean, college baseball obviously has completely changed. It used to be 11.7 scholarships for like a 40-some man roster. Now it's like possibly scholarships all the way up to the 35-man roster at the Division I level, but not every school's functioning that way. Not every school has the money to do that. So it changes. And once those ripples at the top level happen, it goes down. And I tell everybody, like, you know, I'm a guy who walked on at a big school, ended up at an NAIA school, loved every second of it, right? I got to play, I got to compete, I got to enjoy that time. I look at Peyton Lewis, whose son is in the Cincinnati Reds organization, and his other son plays for the Huskers, plays baseball for the Huskers. Peyton Lewis was at Midland when I was there. He was Great Plains Athletic Conference Player of the Year, transfers to Creighton his senior year, right?
Yeah.
Goes there, and I believe, I can't remember exactly, but I know he was at least on the first team all MVC team, and he went and no-hit Clemson when they're the number one hitting team in the country. Plus, I think he led Creighton in every hitting category too, and ended up getting drafted. So the thing is like with all this, with time, with working hard, you don't know when that story is going to end and when it's there. And you go to Northwestern College, you go to, you're going to Orange City, Iowa, you're going to a school that's great academically, that's the right size, you're going about it exactly the right way. You guys found a spot where you wanted to be, you found the size you wanted to be, you found the proximity where I know mom's happy because she can come and watch you play. And those things matter, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys chase things. And I'm working with a former athlete of mine who's been chasing D1, and he was offered D2 opportunities and kind of poo-pooed those. And now he's sitting here going, what do I do? Because the scholarship structure at the Division I level has changed from,
last week was a big decision.
Yeah, you had 120 men on a football roster with roughly almost 40 walk-ons to now 105-man roster and possibly 0 walk-ons at the high Division I level. That changes a lot of things because there's going to be roughly 2,000 kids with Division I experience, possibly in the transfer portal. that changes everything. And baseball's the same way. We've seen kids who've been committed a long time to Nebraska be told, we don't have space for you. And Nebraska's not the only one, not picking on them.
Yeah. But it's local. It's local, and it's connections. It's seeing how it goes, because when a head coach of a football program like Matt Rule says what he says last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever he did, about those are things that people don't understand unless you're really listening. And even then, half of them are going, well, that doesn't affect me. But COVID affected the kids that are in 2025, 2026. And now you have the scholarships that are going to affect 2027, 2028, and continue, because transfer portal is going to be so flooded.
Yeah.
You're going to get lost in the sauce.
I mean, you had 35 years where the recruiting process was pretty much the same for the most part, little tweaks and changes. And in the past 5 years, it's changed monumentally. And the class really of 25, 26, 27 are the ones that are most, prominently affected. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, like you're going to find places. I truly believe that you're going to find places that were meant for you. I went and I chased something. I can check that off my list, but I ended up at a place that I would always go back to. Going to Midland, everyone it was like my friends back home were like, where are you going? Like, you're from Denver, Colorado, you're in Fremont, Nebraska. Like, what are you doing? And, I didn't know at the time, but it was the best thing for me. And I loved playing in Orange City, man. Orange City was a great place to play football games, and it's a great little town. And for him to see a kid that you coached get to live out a dream of playing college ball at a place where they have high academics, where he's going to go and he's going to be able to chase his dream academically of trying to be a doctor. Like, there's nothing more you could wish for guys that you coached to be able to do than that. And that's phenomenal.
Seeing that, and the best part for me is I've already seen some of that working out. You had Colby Duncan this year. He played for me for basketball. He followed a quarterback that actually got to play the first game for Nebraska, who was at Northwestern. He got to play Northwestern as a freshman and lead with the passing yards, touchdowns. And that team is just firing off on all cylinders. You also had, we had Drew Darnold on the show, Papillion South Titan, who was a leader on that soccer team. And he didn't go there because it was D1. He went there because he knew he can make a change in himself and in the team. Max Pfizer, I don't know if he's still there, but I saw Max Pfizer, former Papillion South Titan, at esports gaming. So you also got to play esports at down here at the
watch out, Cody will dominate on Fortnite.
So
I know that's
not
esports.
But
yeah.
it is. But those are the things. Is not only did he get to go to Northwestern to play baseball, but he was sitting there playing the game that he gets to play with his buddies, represent a college, and enjoy his time. Like, these are memories. These are moments of, if you went to a school where maybe you didn't get to play, you might not get those opportunities because you're so worried about getting that opportunity to play that you forget life. And if you think of your past 4 years, you probably had moments and struggles where you were so caught up in wanting that baseball that you might have missed just being a kid. What do you feel about that, and just kind of these past 4 years of sometimes where those decisions to be who you are today didn't hinder who you are, but it also made it rough sometimes going through the process?
Yeah, sometimes you just pick doing sports, pick going to lift, pick going to hit, pick doing
your grades. You studied a lot, man.
Yeah. You pick to study or things like that. But you just miss some things. You miss some dances, maybe. I know I missed one this fall for
you skipped homecoming for a baseball tournament.
I did. I missed for a baseball tournament.
It's okay. The favorite DJ wasn't there.
Hey, I know Ty left in like 20 minutes, so it's all good.
Yeah, there's just some things that you maybe you miss out on. You don't go hanging with your buddies one weekend because you decide to just go get some late night hitting in, or maybe you go 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts in a game, and then you're like, I don't want to hang out tonight. I'm going to go hit for 2 hours and go figure out why I'm even playing baseball anymore.
Well, I do know a guy who went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts and drove to Elkhorn to Chips Performance Center and may have hit. His name may be Cody, but yes. So
but on that same token of making that decision, though, sometimes it's not always the best decision. You might not get the best reps. We've had multiple athletes talk about that. what do you think is something that you have to personally grow in that spot of being hard on yourself, but not to the point where you can't continue to grow because you're just hitting the ball to hit the ball because you're like, this is what will get me where I need to be?
Yeah, luckily I have a great mom who kind of helps me with that, kind of keeps me grounded sometimes after a bad game. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to go up to Chips and hit late tonight. And we just got done with an 8 o'clock game. And she's like, you're staying home tonight. You can sleep on it and you can go tomorrow. And a lot of times those things really kind of help clear your head. It's nice to have somebody like that in your life, just because, my mom, she's been around baseball a long time and she's learned more and more every year, but she still does not know everything. But she just keeps it very, very simple for me. And she kind of helps keep me grounded in that sense. And she's like, just stop overthinking, just go out there, have fun. She kind of keeps me like having fun with it, keeping the game fun. And she loves it when I smile. She's always telling me like she loves me when I'm playing third base or something. Like she's so kind-hearted.
She's the bubbly person that, my wife shared just not too long ago, and I saw it again when I brought out the lawnmower to clean up the fields, and your mom decides to sit on a 54-inch lawnmower just to go around the field as the dust is just going up everywhere. So she always loved to have fun and make it fun for you. When you think of just these past couple years of how important teams like the Prospects are to you, it's hard for kids to decide one sport and say, hey, this is what I want to go do. Was the Prospects just something that was an easy fill in to go, they're going to get me to where I am? It's not easy making those decisions. It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Not that money was a matter. That wasn't. But it is it's a thing of, man, I've now got to perform. They're paying all this money out. They're doing all this thing.
Yeah.
How important was the Prospects? And is it something that kids should really try to get if they want to get seen?
Yeah, I loved it. I think without them, the process definitely would have been harder for me. It just they just have so many connections. Like that's what people don't get. Like I think just like knowing more and more people and becoming like friends with more and more people and just putting yourself out there, it kind of just exposes you to a whole new world. Prospects, they put me in front of so many different coaches at so many different tournaments that I might not have been at or been in front of if it weren't for them. And I met a lot of great coaches. Sean Jurasek, he coaches at Millard West. He helped me with my recruitment, reached out to coaches for me. He was a great avenue. Tyson Parks at Southeast, he was my coach over the summer. He helped put me in great positions to succeed when coaches came to watch me. He talked to coaches for me. This fall, I've Ryan Ahart, Daryl Parks, Alex Hale. There's just so many people that have helped me along this journey to kind of be in front of the right people and support me, help me with recruitment videos. If I have any questions, be able to ask them. Like, I just think just putting yourself out there and in front of the right people with the right connections kind of really, really helps. And I think Prospects does that really well.
TJ, when you think of even your own son's stuff, football doesn't have that. They have the 7-on-7.
Yeah.
But that's a highlight reel. That's not always the real deal. How does that change, or will there ever be a change to where football can have what basketball has AAU? Obviously, we've seen what the Prospects and just the explosion of that whole perfect game. You have all those different avenues. Do you think there's going to be ever something for football besides just a football camp where you might get 6 reps and that's all you get in front of all those coaches?
Yeah, that process is going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think 7-on-7 is going to continue to, or probably gain more importance as it gains high school level affiliation in different states. Like there's different states that are making it a spring sport. So as that continues to grow, it's going to be interesting to see how that changes things, because football's been one of those things where you can sign up for the high school, you can get development, you can grow, you can hit the weight room. If your school has a good strength coach, good program, you could develop and get yourself seen. I don't know how that works with football, with the contact part of it.
Yeah.
Because, with everything there, they're trying to go safety. But then again, you go to a camp, and I know that was part of the delay with Ty's recruitment coming off the ACL, was he wasn't able to have contact until really the last camp of the year, which was 2 weeks before camp started, where he was cleared for contact. So no one really got to see him hit, which no matter what anybody says, that's a big part of it. You're a linebacker, you better be able to hit. You better be able to bring it a little bit. So they want to see that. They want it. They want to be able to do that. And I think college coaches right now, they have it pretty good. So I don't know how much that push is going to be, because really they come to you on your campus. If you're a big school, if you're a small school, they can come to you, or you go to a big school as a camp counselor, if you will, and you're there assessing stuff, and everyone's in one place. And it's kind of like the baseball tournaments, honestly.
Yeah.
You go up to SDSU and there's 30, 40 coaches up there for their camp. You go to Lindenwood in Missouri and there's 60, 70 colleges there. Nebraska invites lower level schools to their camps, where they're going to get D2 and NAIA and JUCO coaches there too. So when you go to those camps, you're not just seen by them. Baseball has a little more under lock and key. If you go to a Nebraska camp, a Notre Dame camp, a Tennessee camp, for the most part, you're just getting those staffs. They might have a few people there at some of them, but it's not as extensive there. So I don't know if football can move that way. But if there's a will, there's a way right now, because it is a way to get exposure for kids. It's also money making too, for entities. So anytime you mix those things together, exposure for kids who are trying to earn college scholarships, and their parents, and someone can find a way to make a little coin on it. It's kind of like water, man. It's going to find a way. So I think at some point there'll be something. Maybe we need to be the ones smart enough to figure that one out.
Cody, we'll get you out of here on this. Of course, big decisions. What are you looking to finish with your senior year, and how, when's everything start for Northwestern for you?
So yeah, probably have to go sometime in September for fall ball and everything. But yeah, looking forward to getting on campus this spring. I'm looking forward to a great season. We got a great team. I think we can really make a run for it, and I really hope we can. And I hope we kind of show out a little bit this spring. And
you got to finish like you did. I mean, summer you guys came out with Legion ball, and you guys came out strong.
Yeah, they return, I think 18. I think Papillion South returns 18 kids with varsity experience.
Yeah,
which is crazy. 9 guys have already signed to play collegiately. They have another in the junior class who's committed to Nebraska, Cordell Klinkenbeard. And then they might get Bryson Ball back helping pitch. I don't know. We're trying to work that in.
Aren't you doing basketball?
Yeah. I am. I'm back.
Cody's playing basketball again, so it's the exchange program, right? Like the basketball gets Cody, baseball gets Bryson. Maybe, you have some guys on that roster, that are pretty impressive. And then, you had the older Minderman, Emmett commit. You've got Griffin Minderman, who started shortstop as a freshman on that team. That's crazy. I mean, on a decent team. You have a lot of, athletes. You have Grant Gilbreth, who's committed to Valparaiso. You have Danny Wallace, who's committed to Oklahoma State, who was rated the #1 player in the state and was top 500 in there. Bryson Botus going to UNO. So they have a lot of talent and great coaching staff with a lot of experience, a lot of guys who played collegiately up there, and Coach Lynham, who's been there for a long time and has won state championships. So you put all that together, they should make a run, right?
That's right, 2025. Well, once again, I greatly appreciate those who continue to watch, share, enjoy the stories of these athletes who go through probably one of the hardest times of their life. That's, people go, well, why aren't you interviewing this person? If they haven't committed, I only do that out of respect to them, because the journey to this part of life is something you either have experienced, which me and my wife never did, so we couldn't help our kids through the process. And I think that's what is the most important of this. Learn the process, find your help, find your connections. Your contacts will help you more than you know, but you also have to ask for it. You can't just expect people to get out of their pocket and go, here's the helpful hint. You got to go find it. Once again, Wired Axcess Podcast. We'll see you next time.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.